The November 22nd, 2016 Port Orchard City Council regular meeting. Please join and stand me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, we are at the approval of the agenda. Is there any amendments to tonight's agenda? Mr. Clausen.
Yes, Mayor, I would like to add a discussion item to the business items, and that would be a discussion on the results of the salary survey and a change to the organizational chart.
Okay, we have a discussion item I, which is salary survey and organizational chart.
Second.
We have a second, motion and a second. Discussion of adding that as a discussion item. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we've added that item. Any other amendments to tonight's agenda?
Should we excuse?
It's your call.
I would move to add to the consent agenda, excusing Councilmember Donlin from the meeting.
Okay. We have a motion to excuse Councilmember Donlin, add that to consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we've added that to the consent agenda. Any other amendments to this evening's agenda? Okay. Hearing none. So let's see here. Should we vote to approve the agenda as amended?
Mayor, I move to adopt the agenda as modified.
Okay.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. We are at our first citizen comment period. Anyone wish to comment on any items on the agenda this evening? I see no one wanting to speak to us, so there's another citizen comment period at the end of the meeting. We are to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Mr. Wilson, I see you out there in your crimson and gray sweater. I'm sure you've got something to share with us tonight.
Good evening. I'm Michael Wilson, General Manager of West Sound Utility District, and Randy Screws is also here, the plant manager. And we're going to walk you through a PowerPoint presentation on the 2017-18 SCWRF biennial budget. You should also have copies of our
Can we bring down the screen, Brandy?
Mic up a little bit.
While that's while we're getting set up here, I wanted to just briefly comment. The budget that you have is a program format budget. I know a few of you have listened to our presentation. We do this once every 2 years. We did have a presentation before the Sewer Advisory Committee last week, and the Sewer Advisory Committee went through in detail the budget. In this document, although we're going to be spending some time just highlighting what's in the budget, the program concept, I'll just kind of go right into it. The program budget format that we use, I've been using this format for about 30 years in the cities and counties I've managed, and basically it makes your budget a strong policy document. The really focus is on the projects, the goals, the objectives, the services, everything that is done by The sewer treatment plant is identified within this budget document, and we do our best to quantify each of the objectives or projects or programs. In the document is also a 20-year capital improvement program versus a 6-year. We migrated away from the 6-year program about 5 years ago. So we do long-range planning, and in particular for utilities, for the sewer treatment plant, water and sewer. We think it's a smart move to make, particularly because of the debt that we have with the sewer treatment plant, and that debt extends beyond the next 6 years. So you can kind of take a look at the programs and projects and capital improvement program that we have to see what needs to be done over the next 20 years and also how that aligns with the debt. Hopefully as you walk through the budget, it'll give you a really good idea of everything that's being done at the sewer treatment plant. It's a solid long-range planning and fiscal planning document. It also meets GFOA standards in that it's a policy document, evaluates the district and city programs, provides management information, establishes financial control. And at the end of each year, we do an achievements report to basically identify what was accomplished during the fiscal year, and we provide that report to the district and to the city. The goals and priorities of the sewer treatment plant are fairly standard. These don't change a lot. We've done a tweaking on a few of them, but essentially the primary goal is to provide an efficient and cost-effective maintenance and operation program. Randy does an exceptional job along with his crew. From a financial management standpoint, I think we do a good job of identifying from a long-range planning standpoint, from a fiscal management standpoint, how the operation should be, how it should function in a fiscally and efficient manner. We also have a strong program for maintenance and equipment upgrade, adequate funding for capital projects and debt service. Responsible for environmental stewardship is obviously key. Highly regulated organization. We have basically someone on staff full-time that handles all the lab work. We have actually a multitude of staff members that know how to do lab work, but that's a key component of the operation. Project a positive image. We do have an education program and making the community aware of what the sewer treatment plant is all about from an environmental stewardship perspective. Okay, taking you into the budget, if you've had an opportunity to review the budget, you'll see much of this in about a 6-page budget introduction. It's a budget letter that I prepared, and this provides all the information, for the most part, that you can read in that 6 pages and get a real good understanding of the financial operation, the programs and objectives of the sewer treatment plant. So for 2017 and 18, again, we migrated over to a biennial budget about 6 years ago. So this is our third iteration of a biennial budget. The sewer treatment plant budget is comprised of 3 funds: our operating fund, the capital improvement fund, and ER&R fund. ER&R fund is rather minor. We only have about $200,000 of equipment, contractors' equipment and vehicles in that fund, but it's fully funded. We've built up the funds sufficiently so that it's self-sustaining now. The SQURP 2017 combined budget, they are combined is 7% more than the 2016 budget, and the 2018 combined budgets are 13% more than the 2017. And this is attributed to the capital projects, which we'll get into later. If you look at the operations from a year-by-year basis, there's not really much change. It's a fairly status quo operational budget, but from a capital improvement standpoint, you'll see in 2017 and 2018 there that we've got a couple of major projects coming up that they're programmed and funded. So this compares the 2016, about 3.4 million each year. Again, not a lot of changes. We did, over the last couple of years, we did have one staff reduction, so we operate with 9 FTEs. And the 2 capital projects, the capital budget will be going up from about 550 up to 930, and then about 1.4 million in 2018. We don't have anything funded for capital equipment replacement for the next 2 years. Objectives for 2017 and 18, from a budget and financial standpoint, balanced budget. We operate under a balanced budget format, obviously. It's important that the expenditures do not exceed the revenues. We don't balance the budget by using any fund balance. We, from a financial management policy perspective, and the district has rather detailed financial management policies. And one policy that we have from a fund balance standpoint is we begin the year with a minimum fund balance of 15%. With respect to the sewer treatment plant, actually, we begin the year with at least 30%. And we need to have that beginning fund balance at that level, essentially in excess of $1 million, because we have a big debt service payment that is due in May-June timeframe. We remit that money to the city. The city pays the 2 Public Works Trust Fund loans that we have. Budget planning, again, this is a long-term funding effort. Budgeting, financial management, and accountability are highly important to the district and to SCWRF in partnership with the district. And we maintain solid financial records, good annual reports, and our audits are sound. Capital Improvement Program, again, 20-year CIP. And we added one item which I think is extremely important, and that's the second sentence under Capital Improvement Program. We're focusing on this budget, and you'll see it embedded in the 20-year CIP, and that's focused on funding for the next phase expansion for plant capacity. You know, we're operating right now with, we operate at about 45% of hydraulic capacity at the plant. Randy will be talking a little bit further when we get into capital projects, but what often happens is that growth occurs, connections are made, and all of a sudden you're at 85% capacity, and guess what? You have to design for the expansion of your plant, and then you wind up going out and borrowing money. Shouldn't have to do that. We should have enough money within the capital fund, building up reserves to pay for those plant expansions, and primarily that should be paid for by your general facility charges. So between the district and the city, we should be contributing money into the operations and collect money and put in reserves within the capital fund that will be earmarked for future expansion. We will be able to do that once the 2 Public Works Trust Fund loans are paid for in 2022 and 24. That'll free up about $950,000 that we'll then be able to, over the next probably 12 to 15 years, until we hit a 20-year mark out there, horizon, which we think is probably when the next expansion is going to be needed to be able to fully fund a plant expansion. And then financial management policies, which we've talked about. Debt service program. 28% of the operating budget is used to pay for annual debt financing obligations. Plant operation. Personnel staffing. What's going to be happening next year is that within the budget, we have money in the operating budget to fund a 2.3% cost of living salary increase. The budget also contains a $50 increase in the district city's contribution toward the employees' medical benefit program. Our employees are under a uniform PEBB program, and it's a composite rate structure. We won't get into a lot of detail, but obviously rates are a little bit volatile. For the most part, they've been relatively stable. We've not had to increase them much over the last number of years, but it's time to do a little bit of an increase. so that the employees aren't overly burdened with an inordinate amount of contribution out of their own pocket. And then 3, the Reclaim Water Program. The second highlight there is the Reclaim Water Program. That has been an integral part of the sewer treatment plant for the last at least 15 years, and was a big component of how the plant, this last phase expansion of the plant, was designed as to be able to accommodate a reclaimed water program. The determination was made a couple of years ago as we completed the requirements under the grant that we had for putting in Purple Pipe, that eventually that reclaimed water program would be suspended. We did provide reclaimed water to the Veterans Home for 2 years during the summer months, and it was suspended last year. So it's been mothballed. We want to keep it out there. It's there. It's a program that could be revitalized, but right now, financially, it does not make any sense to continue to spend ratepayers' money to generate reclaimed water when there's really no benefit or need for it right now. Biosolids program and the MBR system, Randy would be talking about this a little bit later, but those have been 2 critical programs that a considerable amount of work has been done in concert with a consultant. Randy provided a great report to the Sewer Advisory Committee the meeting before last, and the 2 capital projects that are coming up are as a result of these assessments that have been made with respect to what to do for the biosolids program and also the MBR system. And this is a personnel staffing. The district provides support as general manager. My time is restricted under our contract. 20% of my time is funded by SQURF. We have the same amount of financial support. 1.15 FTEs is used to process claims, payroll, budgeting, financial reports, and so forth. Medical benefits, we contribute $1,050 toward employees' benefits, and there have been no changes to salary structure for any of the employees, but we are proposing to do a couple of classification changes, changing our maintenance techs to plant operator 1s and our current plant operators to plant operator 2s. The reason for that is our maintenance techs right now do not have operator certifications, and we'd like to have those employees, our maintenance techs, be operators. So we will be making some changes to the classifications. Again, no changes in salary structure for those employees. If they're under operator 1 certification, they'll be paid at a grade 13. If they're operator 2, at a grade 15. The financing, the SQURF operating fund, the proposal is that the district and city will, that there'll be increased funding by 50 cents per ERU, increase from $22 to $22.50. There's no budgeted rate increase for 2018. And one of the reasons for this is that the district and city's ERUs have been stagnant. As a matter of fact, we went back and looked at our growth within our customer base. Over the last 10 years, we've only had 5.6% growth in customers over the last 10 years on the water side. And from a ERU standpoint, the Sewer Advisory Committee reviews the ERU counts that both the city and district provide. This formula is used to determine how much we both contribute into the sewer treatment plant. And this last year, that ERU rate was stagnant, limited growth on the residential side, and on the commercial side, the ERU count was actually down a little bit because of winter month water sales which is used to gauge and calculate our ERUs, was down this past winter. So we need to be able to maintain a revenue level and grow it slightly. The amount of money we contribute to the sewer treatment plant hasn't even come close to even keeping up with inflation, and we've been able to still, operate pretty efficiently without inordinately growing the revenue that we both contribute. Operating fund, education program, transfers. We transfer out of the operating fund $5,000 into the ER&R fund. That has been severely cut down because we are fully funded. We're at a funding level that we just simply need to maintain. A small contribution and equipment will be purchased probably in 2019. $400,000 is contributed annually from SCWRF operating fund into the capital fund. That's not changed. And our debt service payments are moving down slightly. They've been about $950,000. They're now down to $940,000. They will stay at that level until 2022 when the first Public Works Trust Fund loan will be paid off. Then it'll dip down into, I think, about $350,000, $400,000. And then 2 years later, both loans will have been paid off. The Capital Improvement Fund, as we've talked about, 20-year CIP that we prepare. You'll see in the back of your budget a ledger-size sheet that has all the projects along with debt service. We both, the city and the district, both contribute $1 per ERU out of our rates to go into the Capital Improvement Fund. And for the next 2 years, we have only 2 capital projects budgeted for each year, but they're significant projects, which Randy will talk about here in a minute. 2017, $924,000 will be spent on those 2 projects, and $1.4 million for 2018. When you spend more time looking at the detailed 20-year CIP, this is a very important component of that, or summary of that report. If you look at our operating fund and capital funds and see how much money that we're funding the entire operation, we've looked at over the next 20 years how much of the total budget will make up capital projects and operating obligations, and we're estimating about $1.9 million, or about 50% of SCWRF's annual revenues. That's an important component of this. The one thing that's nice about the sewer treatment plant is that the revenue is very predictable because it's based on a rate structure, based on ERUs, versus how much revenue are we generating from water sales or sewer sales. We both contribute a set amount of money, so it makes it fairly easy to budget. And then the final bullet is re-emphasizing set-aside funds for the next phase expansion of the plant capacity. Here are the 2 projects, and I'm going to skip over this because I'm going to bring it back to this in a minute for Randy to talk about. Where do we compare from a rate standpoint? We've looked at LOT, which is the regional sewer treatment plant in Thurston County that provides sewer service for Thurston County, Tumwater, Lacey, and Olympia. Their charge to those municipalities is $37.14 per ERU. King County Sewer Treatment Plant, Auburn is a customer. Their charge is $42.03 per ERU. Sewer Treatment Plant in Tacoma, this is a 2017 charge. They charge $30.20. For West Sound Utility District and Port Orchard, our contribution this past year, we're both contributing the $22 plus $1, combined $23 per ERU. But when you add in the fact that we also contribute money, we both contribute $200,000 from our general facility charges. Factoring that in, then our total contributions is equivalent to about $25.50.
Michael, where do we compare to Bremerton or Kitsap County versus those?
Well, you know, I remember asking Bremerton once to split out in their budget. I should know this because I worked for Bremerton years ago. But they have their sewer budget is combined budget with the sewer treatment plant operations and so forth. They don't contract their services out to other municipalities, so they don't have like a charge. So I'd have to go through their budget and run it some calculations or ask them to do it and to see how many ERUs and so forth that they have, but they don't have that formula. Same thing for Sumner. Sumner's a regional sewer treatment plant. They're in partnership with Bonnie Lake, but they have a different formula in how they calculate their contributions, and they don't break it out in the same way we do. King County, Tacoma, they are a service provider to other municipalities, so they do have a formula similar to what we've got. At some point in time, I'm just as a curiosity, I'll probably dig into it more to see if I can go into other municipalities' budgets and see what portion of their budget we can calculate on an ERU basis that is attributed to their sewer treatment plant operation. But again, they don't generally calculate it that way. Or at
Do you
least
know
they
what
don't have
Kitsap Counties is?
Pardon me?
Do you know what Kitsap Counties is?
Kitsap County's, well, I have a house in Manchester. It's 67, I think it's 67.50 now. It's been like going up several dollars each year. See, $135 divided by 2. What's that? 67.50. I think it's 67.50.
Is that what they charge, like Paulsbo, for example? They provide service to Paulsbo?
I think they charge it pretty uniform across the region, but that's that's the bill that I get for Manchester. So I don't know what the other entities are charged. I think they're charged the same. But when you look at the components of the service that are sewer treatment plant versus the operations, and you'd have to break out the calculations on that. And then ER&R, I mentioned this is just a miscellaneous fund. About $175,000. We didn't budget any money for expenses for 2017 and 18. And like I said, we are close to having it be funded at the level that we want to sustain it at. So backing up, I'm going to have Randy talk about the capital projects. These are two critical projects that obviously consume a good portion of the budget.
Thank you. Mike talked about the 2017 capital projects being $924,000. One of the things to keep in mind is $174,000 of that was deferred from our current budget to the 2017-18 budget for our storage building. We went out to bid on that. Of course, with the market the way it is and contractors be able to pick and choose, the bids come in well above what we had budgeted for that project. So we opted for the staff to complete part of that project and get it to a phase where we could bring the contractors in to finish it, to cut those costs down. Currently on that project, we've got the site cleared, we've got our drainage in, we've got our helical piles for the foundation and for the actual building slab for it because of soil conditions in, and we have all the walls poured and all the back drainage and retaining rock installed, and we're into that project for about $35,000. So we're going to come in well under budget on that project. The one big project, we have two large projects that we're looking at. In 2017, we're looking at replacing the dewatering centrifuge equipment. This is based on a couple of factors. One is that we did have HDR Engineering do a report on our biosolids to do a complete assessment on our Class A feasibility. If you remember, the city and the district had an interest in that. It began in 2004. And one of the things that I wanted to do was set a goal and a timeline and come to a completion on this project. And we really wanted to look at the project and see what the viability was, what the marketability was, all the different options that could be done with Class A, and would that benefit the city and the district in the short and the long term, and would it benefit the community? And what we found out that just was not going to pencil for us. Matter of fact, for us to go to a full-blown Class A process that would end up being beneficial to the community, we were looking over the next 15 to 20 years of actually going in the hole a little over $10 million to do that project. So it wasn't very palatable. So we took a little step back and said, what can we do to actually try to save money? Because that's our goal, is to do as efficient and effectively as we can. And what we found is that one of the best things that we could do for the facility to cut some of our costs, and our cost is not only our energy cost, equipment cost, maintenance cost, but it's also our resource costs, was to get away from this equipment that we purchased used in 2000 and was installed in 2001 that's getting towards the end of life. We're currently looking at putting about $140,000, $150,000 at the most into that piece of equipment to rebuild it next year. It's got some severe issues. When we looked at that and we looked at the cost of replacement, we just didn't think it was very sensible for us to do this for the next 5 to 6 years when that equipment actually end of lives. A lot of the parts and components are becoming obsolete for it. They're no longer carried in the country. They're becoming specialty items that we have to bring out of Germany and have them sent over. So we thought it was prudent that we really look at replacing that piece of equipment. The other side of the story for that piece of equipment is when we do this, we're also going to save other costs beyond those type of costs. Our hauling costs will go down. We'll have more efficient means of loading trailers, and also our tipping costs should go down. If you remember, a few years ago, we switched contracts for our hauling and tipping. We were able to save about $18,000 a year, and I'm hoping to shave off another $5,000 or $6,000. When we look at it in a simple payback formula, this replacement should pay for itself in about 7 years. So not a bad investment on the dollar. And it's important that we continue, if we're going to do projects, to do these type of projects that benefit us not only short term but long term. Looking into 2018, we also have another project in there, the exterior coatings for $45,000, which also was deferred from this budget, biennial budget. And the simple reason for that is the coatings were going to be placed on the solids building to cover all the exposed metal in the pan decking. And we felt if there was any structural framework that needed to be put in that building to take care of the installation of this dewatering equipment replacement, that it would be kind of foolish for us to spend that money to have those coatings put on and then come back 2 years later and ask for money to coat the same piece building. So we opted to defer that out to 2018 to ensure that that project was completed. One of the things I want to note on that dewatering centrifuge replacement too is the engineering estimate for that project came in at $1.2 million. I went out for budgetary bids with a couple companies, and I got estimates of $1.9 million for that project. I sat down with the manufacturer of the equipment, and we sat down and discussed what portion of the engineering they would be willing to do, what the staff could do, and how we could cut the costs on that. And that's where we came up with the $750,000 figure. We think that we can cut those costs substantially and come in under budget on that project by working closely with the manufacturer, who is here in Washington State in our backyard, and also the skill set that we have with our staff. In 2018, one of the things that we're looking at is in 2006, we had an MBR system put into the plant, and that was to handle the additional flows and capacities coming into the plant. We haven't seen the growth that was projected out initially when that was installed, but unfortunately we still have to operate and maintain that system to maintain those capacities. Currently we do have a diminished capacity. That's a result of some of the failures of the cassettes, and it is prudent that we start a program and establish some kind of means of identifying to Ecology that we are serious within our budget and have a goal and plan laid out for the long term for holding on to that capacity. The treatment plant needs to start working closely with Department of Ecology middle of next year, if not sooner, and we need to have a firm plan in place before June of 2018. In June of 2018, our new NPDES permit application is due to be into Ecology, and we want to have everything negotiated out prior to that application going in. Once we hit that point and we have to have it in, we're done. They make the decisions, and we want to get that on the table and have some good discussion with Ecology. Right now, I will tell you, and I presented this information to the SAC committee, and it's kind of long-winded and it's a lot of information, but if we go with a diminished capacity in the plant and we defer spending the money on this, there may be some growth issues down the road. It has nothing to do with hydraulics. It simply has to do with the loadings that are coming into the plant, which are elevated well above the hydraulics. Mike talked about the hydraulics being around 45%. We're pushing close to 70% on the loading capacity, and that's one of the things that we need to work on to maintain the overall capacity in the plant to be able to sustain future growth and what's going on. We're going to be looking at some other things to make sure. We've already started a regime and doing multiple types of testing to make sure there's no issues with the testing we're doing and the results that we're getting. We're currently in the process of replacing our samplers that are more accurate. Looking into the current samplers we have, they're a very old type of sampler. They've been around for 20 years, and from what I've read and from what I found out from a few engineering firms, there has been issues with material remaining in those samplers and being doubled up and coming in and being measured. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're getting good, accurate measurements so we know where we're really at. But back to the cassettes, you know, it's really a prudent thing that we maintain and sustain that capacity for the city and the district and move on into the future. So with that, I don't have anything much to offer, and I know that Mike has his crimson and gray on, but I wore my Husky coat, and I know he's got one more slide he wants to show you, so I will get out of his way and let him go. I know.
Okay. I'd really encourage the council to take a look at the 20-year CIP. We also put in the budget document other things that we expect that the elected officials like to see. We do have travel training identified in there. We also have capital outlay items that we review. We put that in for detailed review. The line item budget detail is also in there. So with that, we've concluded our presentation and open it up for any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Wilson? Don't see them. Thank you for your presentation.
And in light of this being Apple Cup, go Cougs. There you go.
All right, we are on to our next agenda item, which we've got a couple of public hearings. The first is a public hearing on an animal variance for 534 Melcher Street. Clerk Reinerson.
All right, good evening, Mayor, Council. So on October 21st, 2016, the City Council office, the City Clerk's office received a request for an animal variance from Mr. and Mrs. Stablefelt. The variance is requesting a fourth animal, a cat, to be licensed at their family residence. Port Orchard Municipal Code requires that dogs and cats be licensed when they are over the age of 6 months. Port Orchard Municipal Code 7.12.1090, subsection 2, allows for pet owners to seek a variance of additional cats or dogs upon a request submitted to the City Council, and a public hearing is held. In addition, notice is given to all adjacent property owners of the public hearing. On November 8, 2016, staff was directed to set the public hearing for today. All adjacent property owners have been notified of tonight's public hearing, and as of today, no comments were received by the clerk's office. Staff recommends the mayor open the public hearing.
Okay. Public hearing is open. Is anyone wishing to testify on this matter? No one signed up? You're leaning forward. Would you like to testify? Okay. If you could just speak into the microphone so we can hear you.
Karen Stubblefeldt, I'm the owner of the animal. We moved into Port Orchard with the existing animals, and in order to not have to pick which one had to go, we just like favorable consideration for this variance. And we also, one of our animals is 14 years old, so we know that a dog that she'll be passing away shortly. And then we will be within the code with just 3 animals. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wish to testify? on this matter? Mr. Whittleton?
I applaud any cat owner that is willing to license their cats. I wish more people would do it.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else? Jerry, Bobby, Brad? You're the only ones left. All right, I will close the public hearing. All right, we are on to the next public hearing. A public hearing on adoption of a resolution allowing the city to sole source potable water treatment with ATEX Systems, Inc. Mr. Dorsey.
Thank you, Your Honor, council members. On March 13th, 2015, and April 17th, 2015, and in conjunction with the city's Well 10 DWSRF-funded project, the City of Port Orchard's Public Works Department discussed with the 2015 Utility Committee the need to sole source the required manganese treatment systems with ATEX Systems, Inc. The reasons to sole source with ATEX Systems, Inc. are as follows. ATEX System is a long-standing local vendor that provides reliable, cost-competitive treatment systems. 2, current city staff has operational knowledge of both the ATEX Systems manganese treatment system and their staff. 3, the city needs to implement manganese treatment at several city sources, Well 10, 13, and Well 9 retrofit, and the new Well 12. And having more than one vendor is operationally problematic. 4, the ATEX system is easily expandable, allowing the city to incrementally install treatment capacity as growth occurs. And 5, the Department of Health, Office of Drinking Water, supports the city's desire to sole source our manganese treatment needs. Staff recommends that the City Council open the public hearing.
In the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to testify on this matter? Got no one signed up?
I think sole source contracts are a good idea, as long as the contractor that's getting the sole source agrees to use off-the-shelf parts rather than proprietary equipment.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Anyone else wishing to testify? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. We are on to our business items for this evening. First item is business item 7A, which is approval of a CAT variance for 534 Melcher Street. Clerk Reinderson, I don't know that you need to give that staff report again.
Oh, she's so sick.
So basic information, so the stable belts had indicated that they are new to the area and didn't realize that after moving to the city limits, that they agreed, and they greatly appreciate the animals and that they could seek a variance on the oldest animal and understand that if a variance is approved, it's not continued onto a new animal. Staff recommends the approval.
Yes, Ms. Lucarelli.
I move to authorize the city clerk to issue an approval letter and a pet license for the fourth animal, cat, to Mr. and Mrs. Staplefelt, and for them to comply with all other regulations and licensing requirements of Port Orchard Municipal Code Title VII.
Second.
Motion and a second for the approval of the CAT variance. Any comments? Questions? Councilmember Ashby.
I just had one, and that is, I have no problem with their 4 animals. I think that's fine. What was a concern to me was in reading their application, indicating that the cat provides a valuable service to our house by keeping rats at bay. He has already killed multiple rats in and by our house. I'm wondering if we have a rat problem somewhere in the city that we need to address.
Oh, they're everywhere.
I didn't hear that.
Mr. Dorsey said it'd be a health department, animal control issues.
Of the city.
Works.
Oh, we're not casting any blame for
No,
this.
I just wondered, do we have a problem?
I would say that yes.
I know that we have issues with rats on the waterfront, and we've worked actually with the Department of Health on that. I didn't know there were other parts. I knew that the wharf rats on the waterfront were a problem.
I think the rats are everywhere. There are mysterious little animals in my backyard that scurry around at night. I usually don't have my glasses on, so I'm not sure what they are. But
Shrews.
Pardon?
Shrews.
So yeah, I think there is a population problem. I've also heard about them on Bay Street, and I think anecdotally, I've also heard that they like ivy. So anywhere you see ivy, there's probably rats there.
Okay.
I wanted to echo what Nick said and also commend the Staebelfelds and anyone else who does license their pet, because it seems like it's through their compliance that they run into some of the limits, that constraints.
Right.
So it's kind of ironic that you have people who are new who are looking, and I hope that all my dogs are licensed. So this is a good reminder that maybe we need to remind people that they need to license their animals.
Sounds like a good article for the clerk's office to prepare to the mayor to put in a
Newsletter. Could be a great, not the rats, but
No.
but the need to license your pets. So, other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we will be voting to approve an animal variance for 534 Melcher Street. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We're on to 7B, adoption of a resolution allowing the city to sole source potable water treatment with Atex Systems, Inc. Mr. Dorsey, you ready for a staff report?
Yes. Earlier this evening, the City of Port Orchard held a public hearing regarding the desire of the Public Works Department to sole source their potable water treatment of manganese with Atex Systems, Inc. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt Resolution 07516, thereby allowing the City of Port Orchard Public Works Department to sole source their potable water treatment of manganese with Atex Systems, Inc.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will move to authorize the mayor to adopt resolution number 075-16, thereby allowing the City of Port Orchard Public Works Department to sole source their potable water treatment of magnesium with Atex Systems, Inc.
Second.
We have a motion and multiple seconds.
Just a correction, it's manganese.
Oh, manganese.
There you go.
Okay,
That's all.
Bane at well 9.
Yes.
yeah.
So it's much needed. Yes, Mr. Clausen.
I'm just curious, do we have a ballpark idea of what these systems cost? In your resolution, it indicates that they're competitive. Are we talking $50 or $50,000 or $50 million?
Depends on the size of the system, and we haven't sized. So when you look at, let's say when you look at units, they're comparable in, different types of filters, filter systems. So until we finish and complete the 2016 HDR-led retrofit design, we won't know what that number is. I can tell you that the overall project cost right now is, as we've talked in the budget, it's about $1.5 million. And, I'd say half of that is probably the treatment components, the building and the treatment system. So but that's what the facility, it's like the MBR at the plant. It's the guts of the project.
And I'm assuming that as part of your due diligence, you do some kind of spot checking to make sure that it is competitive?
Yeah, well, what we did was, I guess 6 to 9 months ago when we first started looking at well 10, and we were going to do the manganese treatment and setting up the pilot testing. At that time, we looked at all the different types. There's a paralucite, there's a green sand. We met with the Department of Health, met with our consultant, and so at that time we looked at all the different competitors out there, and the decision was made at that point that since we were going to have treatment at 10 or 13 and at 9 and probably at 12, that just like with our SCADA systems, you can't have multiple vendors. You're going to have to just pick one. So we went through a process working with our consultant and working with the vendors. And so, they're cost competitive when we looked at that level. Our water system manager has already, when he was at Silverdale Water District, operational experience with them. They're from Bainbridge Island. They've been there for 20, 30 years. So at that point, we decided it was best to move ahead in having them do our pilot testing for both well 10 and 9. And so,
Gone through an evaluation.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I'm comfortable with it.
Other questions? Mr. Diener?
What's BHC's role with ATEC? Are they're just evaluating ATEC for the city then?
No, BHC is currently our sewer system manager, and they took over as our water system manager at the end of this year, and they're also the design lead for the well 10/13 project. So they're our design consultant on the well 10/13 project. They're also completed our sewer comprehensive plan. They finished up their water system plan when we terminated with the previous consultant.
Well, so the ATEC contract will be through BHC?
No.
Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Oh, no, this is the ATEC will contract with the city through the ad-ready documents. Because this is sole sourcing on all of our projects. The first project that we'll utilize is the well 9. We're going to go out to ad on that in January. So that's the first system that we're going to have treatment. And I just found out today that Tony Lang successfully passed his water treatment operator
Successfully
test
or unsuccessfully?
certification. What's that?
Successfully or unsuccessfully?
Successfully.
Successfully.
Right. So we now have certification to operate that system.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I just have a comment, and I think I understand why we were saying magnesium, because one of the backup documents actually that were provided in the packet is an email from Dick Egolf, and it actually says magnesium filtration system sole source. So that may have been what the
Oh,
mix-up was. Yeah.
it's manganese.
Okay. No, I guess one smells better than the other, and one tastes better.
Did I misuse it in the staff report?
I think we may have the wrong email.
No, I think Dick Egolf
Or he
had a
just-
typo.
Okay. Yeah.
Autocorrect. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll be voting on adoption of a resolution allowing the city to sole source potable water treatment with ATEC Systems, Inc. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. We are on to 7C, first reading of an ordinance amending the 2016 budget. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Patanzo, members of the Port Orchard City Council, citizens of Port Orchard. Actions involving amendments to the budget take 2 readings. This is the first reading of an ordinance amending ordinance number 031-15, adopting the 2016 budget. The public may comment on the amendment following its presentation. The city budget is written to capture revenue and expenses over the fiscal year. During the year, changes to the budget in both revenue and expenditures need to be recognized by budget amendment. Ordinances number 016-16 and 029-16 recognize changes to the budget in the first part of the year. This budget amendment ordinance recognizes changes during the second half of the year. The budget ordinance reflects the following: $13,500 from Real Estate Excise Tax Fund number 109 for additional funding for Phase 2 of the DeKalb Pier project, $17,000 from Impact Fee Fund number 111 for additional funding for McCormick Woods Village Park design, permitting, and preparation of construction documents, $8,000 from Real Estate Excise Tax Fund number 109 for additional funding for the acquisition of property that is adjacent to existing city-owned right-of-way for the Bay Street Pedestrian Path Project, $184,000 for prisoner boarding expenses from Current Expense Fund number 001. The Council Finance Committee recommends moving the ordinance amending the 2016 forward
for a second reading in December.
Okay, Mr. Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to accept the first reading of ordinance number number 031-15, I guess 16, since it's amended. Amending the 2016 budget for the city of Port Orchard and to direct staff to place ordinance number 013-16 on the December 13, 2016 agenda for second reading and final adoption.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll be voting on the adoption of an ordinance oh, no, I'm not. We're voting on the first reading of an ordinance amending the 2016 budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries. We are on to 7E, which is, 7D, adoption of an ordinance creating a new chapter in Port Orchard Municipal Code 5.94, special events. Clerk Reinerson.
And the Economic Development Committee on codifying the process when having an event in the city. The ordinance reflects current practices when processing an application with the exception of the following. The application will be issued administratively with guidelines set by the council as indicated in the ordinance. There will be an administrative fee of $50 per application per event. There will be a requirement of an application be submitted at least 90 days prior to the event taking place. The ability to submit an application after 90 days, but before 30 days with an expedited fee of $50 if the event does not involve a road closure. Events taking place in immediate previous year will have the first rights to the same time and place if the event organizer notifies the city by February 1st of each year. Otherwise, it becomes a first-come, first-served basis. The staff will notify businesses and residents in the area, allowing the public an opportunity to weigh in on how the event may impact them. Should an event require the use of downtown parking lots 3 and 4, more than one business day, the city must be compensated for a loss of revenue in the amount of $300 per day for the use of the lots, and city staff will work with organizations to help provide other parking alternatives. And then lastly, an appeal process has been established. The city council will be the body to hear the appeal. And I've provided the draft ordinance, and staff recommends adoption of the ordinance creating a new chapter 5.94, special events in the Port Orchard Municipal Code.
Councilmember Chardy.
Mayor, I move to adopt an ordinance creating a new chapter 5.94, special events in the Port Orchard Municipal Code as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion or comments?
Mayor,
Clausen.
I have a couple questions.
We have Brad Wiggins from Fire District 7 here too. I'm sure that's why he's here this evening, is for this particular event.
The process allows for or requires the city clerk's office to notify the public of each special event. Is there a process established on how you're going to do that?
We will have one developed internally. When an application comes in, we're going to put together, kind of depends on where it's at. So we're going to have to establish some sort of plan when the event comes in to reach out to them. Either if we have an email address, we can mail them notices. We could put it in the paper, but I think the most effective way is to reach out to them either by mail, in person, by a phone call, or put it on the city's website, social media. I thought that was kind of the idea of giving the public notice. We could put it in the paper, but we didn't feel that would reach enough people.
Well, in reading this, I don't see a distinction. It just simply says that your office will notify the public. So I'm assuming that's a notification citywide of these events. Second question I have is in regards to the determination by our police department and or the fire department that these events may require additional police services and or fire protection, emergency medical services, and I guess there's an option in this that allows them to, at least in the case of law enforcement, to go hire their own. Is there a level of impact that triggers these festivals requiring this extra payment? Or, because it's pretty broad when it says things like just event for purposes of traffic control, crowd control, security. Traffic control, most of the events like closing the streets, public works, but are we going to allow the events to hire their own?
Mr. Clausen, I believe that would be more for the runs.
It'd be for what?
For the runs.
Well, it doesn't specify. It
No, I
just says
realize
when
it
the
doesn't
police chief
specify, but
specifies.
I think that's where the run that we approved last meeting is going from Whiskey Gulch up this way and then up Perry. And they were doing that just with their own volunteers. I didn't see anything in there for police. So that's where I thought, and depending upon the type of event, there may be need for police.
It really
I
comes
think in
down
the past, the police departments reviewed them, and in my conversation with the police chief, what triggers where law enforcement needs to be involved from the city's perspective is the number of people that attend the event. So typically first-time runs or first-time events don't warrant the level of police security, and they allow the event organizer to have adequate volunteers. Typically, they do meet with the police department, Public Works, Kitsap Transit, and Fire District. If it is a run, they have an independent meeting to say, okay, we need and then they have a map that's laid out that says we need 2 volunteers here, 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 here. So I know that they do that extensive review on a run. If it's a new event downtown, I know that they do review it and say, hey, based on the estimated people that you are coming to this event, we're not going to need police security. And that was for the one that brings into mind is the bike one that happened, I think, last year or the year before, where they requested the whole downtown parking lot when in reality they only really needed one section. And then it came out that it might not have been marketed very well because it shut down halfway through the event time. So I know that our law enforcement does look at it, and I know our police department, what triggers that, I don't know. I don't have anything in writing.
They're reviewed individually, and the police department makes a recommendation based on
I'm aware of that. I'm just,
of each event.
both of these, we're letting the event organizers have the option to go hire their own police protection, traffic control. In the case of the fire department, well, I guess even in the police department, it has to be acceptable to the 2 agencies, but I don't know. I guess just generally I'm opposed to this. I appreciate the need for notification and letting everybody know, but I think we're adding a layer of bureaucracy onto this that is going to hinder the community events, make it far more difficult, and potentially reduce the number of events. And I think there's a benefit to the city for having most of these events. So I think we should be encouraging them, not hindering them.
Speaking for staff, I think they're just trying to create a more manageable process and predictable process for the event organizers. So I think there could be benefit actually to the events. Diener?
I'd like to propose an amendment.
Okay.
So in 5.94.060 standards of issuance, so it's on page 37, under number 6, first line, I'd like to replace the word expressing with demonstrating so that it would read, the city clerk received no written comments from the public demonstrating undue hardship or other substantial negative effects of the special event on their property, business, or quality of life. And after a second, I can speak to that.
Okay. There's a motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to add, change some language there. Mr. Diener, you want to speak to
I
that?
think expressing it is a lot lower bar than demonstrating it. I think if somebody has the potential to shut down an activity, that they should be able to demonstrate that hardship.
Okay. That's a good point. Did you capture that change?
I did.
Okay. Other comments on the amendment? Okay. We'll be voting on an amendment to add demonstrate as language. All in favor of that change, say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. The amendment is approved. Other comments or questions?
Suppose one thing we could actually do is see what happens in the next year. Just observe if this does become a hardship and if our number of events are reduced in some way. And come back and address it another year or so and just see how everyone thinks it's doing.
Will this be required for events that are held on non-city property? So, for example, the concerts in the park is on port property. Are they going to have an application for it?
I don't believe so, no.
We haven't required it in the past.
Pardon me?
We've got an application, current process currently, and I don't believe we're requiring it of them now.
It appears to be specific to city-owned right-of-ways and parks.
Or impacting?
John, where was the wording in here that we're going to notify the public?
It is...
Page 36.
Item number 3, the bottom.
Yeah, it's 5.94.050, paragraph 3.
Would you like to make an amendment or amend that so that it isn't to the public in general, but to the neighborhood where the event is going to take place?
I don't have a specific way of limiting it to, especially when it talks about it could go beyond simply the financial. It could be just undue hardship on citizens' properties or quality of life. I mean, for example, we've heard complaints from the hillside when Moondogs had concerts out in that little lot next to them. Is that going to be adequate for this to squash any event like Concerts on the Bay? And then again, where do you draw the line as to who gets notified and who doesn't?
There is an appeal process to, if I think if we're getting to that point where we have a problem with an event, this body is the appeal process.
If they have time, but yeah.
Currently, we bring every one of these events before this body, and it actually lengthens the process because we've got to get it for a council meeting. We're trying to provide an administrative process.
But we're also complicating the process by all of these things of notifying the
The appeal
world.
is only available to the applicant.
Excuse me?
The appeal is only available to the applicant, as I read it, not somebody who might be aggrieved by that decision.
But if staff has agreed with that it is causing hardship and the applicant wanted to continue to move forward, that's where it would come back to this body.
Right. That makes sense.
We're not trying to squash events. We're actually trying to streamline the process so that we're not, many times they come in short notice. It's difficult to get these things before the council in a timely
And for
fashion.
example, we have a Yukon Do It Marathon that we've reached out many times. That's happening at the end of the year, and they still have not completed or submitted the application to the city. It's a marathon, it's a run. Chief hasn't even reviewed the plan. It's my understanding they've already advertised the event. They're taking registrants, and they're just not being responsive to staff. And it's my understanding as well is that they paid for off-duty officers to man their event last year in the last couple of years actually, and we're still waiting for the make payment on last year's services for our law enforcement. So we're hoping that if this is codified and in time before they place their event, that we have now some sort of mechanism to reach out to them, let them know that you have to apply for this process or you cannot have your event. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but you're gonna have a bunch of people downtown on streets with no police officers, or you're gonna pull them over, or I don't know what the rules are on that part, but that's another reason why we're trying to codify it, so everybody's on the same level.
I guess my other question that I would have is that the way the system is set up for an ongoing annual event, they need to notify us in February. Does that application have to be terribly specific other than we want to hold our event on these dates?
No.
Because a lot of times as they organize these events, they might morph between the application and the event, and by morphing could be require more or less or different location or
I believe
different parking requirements.
Yeah. The committee thought of that as well, and what we did add to the language is that as long as they notify the clerk's office by February 1st that, hey, they're going to hold their event Memorial Day weekend or around that time frame, then as long as they still submit the application, completed application before 90 days, then they'll still get their application. They just have to, give me a call or send me an email, say, hey, we're going to hold the
So
event.
that's just going to hold the date for them, is
Correct.
basically.
It's kind of like our banner process.
I was going to say, it's the
Yeah.
same as the banner process. They're going to come in the same day and say we're going to hold this and we need to put our banner up.
Well, if they don't have to submit the application, then that's at least relieve some of my concern.
But we do need to get these, what we're constantly fighting is, we're getting these things 3-4 weeks, before the event. Getting it, we want to be able to get these 90 days ahead of time so we can get it to the fire department, get it to transit, get it to the police department, and,
I understand that part. It's just that this goes way beyond that, in my mind. This adds a whole nother layer of requirements, or multiple layers of requirements that we currently don't have.
And in
Other
speaking-
than just, I can appreciate that we need to be notified in a timely manner. If you don't tell us, you don't do it. It's pretty simple.
I think much of this is our existing practice. It's just not documented.
And
From what I've heard from folks, it's not our existing practice. So I've had a couple of folks contact me and complaining about it, so.
And as Ms. Councilmember Lucarelli had mentioned, is that staff will make sure that we keep all the comments throughout the year, and then I can do a end of the year report type of thing next year to see if you guys want to modify, repeal, or amend the process.
And will you be seeking their input on the applications during the application process as well?
I can, absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Chang.
This is a good effort to streamline the process and let applicants know what we expect. I still am uncomfortable with one part of it, which is that we are giving them 1 day of free parking if they're taking up a parking lot. We're only charging them for the second and subsequent days, so we're giving them 1 free day. That's part of what I'm uncomfortable with. But also, we've decided that rate is really $300 a day, which we know is low if the average week is 2,000. The daily rate would really be $400. So, in essence, we are giving them a gift of loss of revenue for their funds for parking for 1 day. I don't want to really propose an amendment because I know that would be unpopular and probably would not pass. But I would like to say that with that reservation, I'll still support this, but I would like you, Randy, to track the amount of revenue or the number of parking days that we are losing for next year. It may be negligible, so it may not be.
That was heavily debated at the committee. How much?
Well, it was also
Work study.
at work study.
At work
Yeah.
study also, yeah. Okay, any other questions or concerns? Okay, we'll be voting on adoption of an ordinance creating a new chapter, Port Orchard Municipal Code 5.94, special events. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 5-1. Just missing a council member, so I had to count you. All right, we are on to the next item. Is adoption of a resolution setting the amount of property taxes to be levied for year 2017 pursuant to RCW 84.55.120. Treasurer Martin.
Mayor Patonsu, on October 11th, 2016, a public hearing on revenue sources for the current expense general fund budget was held. The hearing included a presentation and discussion on property tax considered for collection in 2017. Below is a chart of a comparison of last year's levy amount to the next year's levy amount. State law establishes maximum levy rates for the various types of taxing districts. Total City of Port Orchard 2017 property tax amount is estimated to be $2,699,059 based upon an estimated maximum $1.75 per thousand of current total assessed value of $1,533,840,493. The 2017 amount is estimated until the final levy calculation is completed by the Kitsap County Assessor. Projected 2017 levy rate of $1.75 calculates a tax of $393.75 on a house assessed value of $225. For cities of 10,000 or greater, state law allows increasing its levy rate by up to the implicit price deflator, or 1%, whichever is lower, from the highest lawful levy unless the City Council passes a substantial need ordinance. Because the IPD is less than 1%, to raise the levy to anything above the IPD or to bank excess levy capacity requires the adoption of a second resolution declaring a substantial need. The IPD is 0.935%, and the city population is greater than 10,000, requiring passage of a substantial need resolution by a supermajority of the council to collect the highest allowable levy. The budget contemplates passage of the substantial need resolution. Council Finance Committee recommends approval of a resolution setting the 2017 levy rate and resolution declaring a substantial need. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution setting the 2017 property tax levy and the amount of property taxes to be raised for the budget year of 2017 and subsequent adoption of a resolution declaring a substantial need.
Motion and a second. Discussion of this item?
I do have a question for the treasurer. I understand the projected levy rate is $1.75 for a house of $225,000. That's estimated to be $393.75. What is the current rate? What would, instead of the $393.75 for 2017, do you know what we're paying in 2016? Is it 7.7% less than that?
Just, off the top, I did that calculation. I can't recall it exactly, but it was almost on parity.
So there's a negligible
we ended up with about I'm trying to recall off the top of my head. I think we ended up with about $1.74 something last year. So $1.75 is almost the same amount on the levy rate. Now our assessed valuation citywide went up, which makes the additional revenue available. But I think if we do the math, it's on parity with last year. That it's within dollars of that on a $225,000 house. I mean, the levy rate last year was like $1.74.8, and this estimation is $1.75.
So if it's a penny on that, sounds like it would be like $10 less than the $393.75. I was trying to look at my own my own property tax bill online, and the county's website is not very good on a smartphone. I can tell you that. So I just wanted to see how my bill would be changed if it would be, noticeable. And it sounds like it would be very negligible from what
for the city. For the city rate, it's going to be nearly the same.
Okay.
This portion, this $1.75 is the city's portion of the $3.60. Where you're going to change is if the assessed value of your house changed.
Right.
So instead of it being $225,000 last year, let's say you get a new assessment and it's now worth $250,000, you're going to have $25,000 more dollars to pay tax on. So if your tax goes up, it's probably because of assessed valuation, not because of the city's levy rate.
Okay.
That helps.
That does. I just wanted to be able to compare to see if, you know, if it probably will go up, how much of that was due to the city's portion of it. Yeah.
Well, what went up was your assessed valuation.
Right,
The
yeah.
city's not driving it up.
Right.
It's,
It would be broken up.
we're just taking the value and applying a levy against it. I hope
Questions?
that's instructive.
Comments? Okay. And we are voting on a motion to adopt a resolution setting the 2017 property tax levy and the amount of property taxes to be raised in the budget year of 2017, and a subsequent adoption of a resolution declaring a substantial need. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you for your support.
We are on to the item 7F, adoption of a resolution approving the final plat for Hortsman Height Phase 2. Mr. Bond.
Thank you. The resolution before you is concerning the final plat of Horseman Heights Phase 2. The Horseman Heights preliminary plat was granted approval with conditions through Resolution 035-06 by the Port Orchard City Council on September 25, 2006. The applicant subsequently requested a minor amendment to the approved preliminary plat to relocate the required park, eliminate a street that connected the plat's two phases, and the installation of park improvements in lieu of a $200 per lot fee. The preliminary plat amendment was approved by the City Council, or by the City of Port Orchard Community Development Director on July 2, 2014. Horseman Heights Plat Phase 2 creates 28 single-family lots. The applicant has installed or bonded for roadway illumination, roads, sidewalks, landscaping, and sewer and storm drainage improvements. Streets within this final plat are public use and will be accepted into the city's road system. Staff recommends approval of a resolution granting approval of the final plat of Horseman Heights Phase 2.
A motion?
I move to adopt a resolution granting final plat approval for Horseman Heights Phase 2 as presented.
Second.
Second discussion?
I don't have an issue with what is in front of us. I have a question about the $200 per lot fee and how that was determined, and is there an expenditure deadline for that?
So the park that is out there has been constructed. That was part of their Phase 1 requirement, and they bonded that under Phase 1. And so when we looked back at the record, they were supposed to pay the fee, but they decided to build the park instead of paying the fee, and council granted that approval previously.
Can you tell, the park is...
It's at the bottom of this development by the entry road on the right-hand side.
Yeah, there's two maps on the map that shows Phase 1 and Phase 2. It's,
Okay.
yeah.
When you come on off
I see it now.
It's a privately owned park managed by the HOA. It's not a public
Right.
park.
Okay, thank you.
This has been an extremely challenged development. It started during the economic downturn. It went into foreclosure. I mean, the bank had to do a number of site stabilizations that we're very, I guess, happy to move this along.
There were some downstream effects.
Yes. This has been a very challenged development. Thankfully,
I was going to say, in addition, this is one of the last projects we have that was not reviewed by the hearing examiner, and so the record that was in place was not as complete as it probably could have been, and what we have to look forward to in the future should be a lot easier to follow what was intended at the time of preliminary approval compared to what we have here.
we're all thankful to be moving forward. Other comments or questions? Okay, we'll be voting on a resolution approving the final plat for Hortsman Heights Phase 2. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is approved. We are on to 7G, approval of November 8th, 2016 council meeting minutes.
I would move to approve the council minutes of November 8th as presented.
Second.
And I believe we're voting on these because Councilmember Donlin was absent, so.
I was absent.
You were absent, okay.
Chang and-
So you'll be abstaining, and Mr. Chang, you'll be abstaining also? Right. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, and two abstentions. Okay, we are on to discussion of trademark city wayfinding logo. Clerk Reinerson.
Yes.
Your last one.
So the Economic Development and Tourism Committee expressed interest in if the city could trademark the New Way Finding logo / image. Staff worked with legal counsel to determine the process to trademark the image. It was determined that the city can register the image with the Washington State by filing a Washington trademark application with the Secretary of State of Office. The city does not need to have the image federally trademarked, since the city would not likely be using the image across the interstate or internationally. Also, to trademark the city's image is not required to protect the city's rights should an issue arise from the use. However, registration provides leverage against an infringer or enhances the remedies that are available to the city in an infringement action. The application has been provided as part of the staff report. Should the council direct staff to move forward with the registering of the image, staff needs confirmation of the types of services you envision or approve of the image being placed on. This relates to Section 2 of the application, but classification numbers are listed on page 2 of the application. Economic Development Tourism Committee recommends the following: vehicles, jewelry, paper goods and printed matter, housewares and glass, clothing, advertising and business, personal and social use. Are there any other classification the council wishes to include? During the discussion of the trademark process, staff, legal counsel, and the committee agreed that the city allow the public to use the image, if the city allowed the public to use the image logo, for example, lodging tax recipients, that a policy for the use and an application should be included when the trademark is registered. If the council is interested in pursuing the trademark, staff will continue to work on a policy and application for use of the image and bring forward at a future work study session for discussion.
It's a discussion item, so we're not potentially not proposing a discussion.
Yes. This has been discussed several times at the Economic Development Tourism Committee. And the idea is we have this wayfinding mark now, and it's a nice mark, and we are wanting it to be used in advertising, and I believe we've already gone through that process in that any recipient of LTAC funds are allowed to use the wayfinding mark, and any event that we have approved in our right-of-way as the special events has the right to use the mark in their advertising. And we have also discussed that some people may want to make a T-shirt with the logo on it. They may want to make mugs. They may want to do something with this logo on it as part of their event or just to sell downtown. And that's what brought this forward, is how do we use it? Do we want it used? And the committee was supportive of using it, particularly in marketing material that goes outside, so that there's a connection with the wayfinding system. When people get to town, they know they're in the right spot. Anyway, that was kind of the gist of why of what has brought this forward.
I would like to see added to the list 28 toys and sporting goods. As an example, a Monopoly game was made last year, and I could see something like that being done again, including sporting goods, depending on if it was a biking event or who knows. So I think if we added item 28, that would be a little more inclusive.
Other discussion or comments?
Well, this is just the first step. There would be an application for use, and the nice part of that is the city would be entitled to a portion of the royalties. I forget the figures you heard. Was it like 10 or 20%?
I can't remember, but the thing that if at this discussion tonight, if council wants to move forward with it, then we will work on the policies for use. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah, I
Right.
mean, to trademark it, you should have some sort of policy in place because it puts some sort of standard use. You don't want the image placed on certain product because it represents the city and you want a good image to uphold, I would assume. So that's the basis for those type of things. But right now, we have it in the lodging tax application to allow them to use it. I believe it's going to be on our public event, or it will be on our new public event application in our toolkit. But it doesn't extend past that. This would allow that. So draft policy is in place. It's almost there, but before we finalized it, we want to make sure that the full council was in alignment with the committee.
I guess for discussion, would we want to consider item number 33, which is wines and spirits?
And 43, along those lines.
43 is, oh yes, food, drink, and lodging.
A water bottle.
Yeah, water bottle.
Yeah.
Underwear?
Underwear? Isn't that Did I hear
Oh,
mishear?
yes,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sure.
Water bottle under which number?
I was thinking clothing was already included.
It was, I thought.
It was, yeah.
25, yeah.
25.
Wayfinding signs, right?
Clothing and underclothing would be the same category, I guess.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I would recommend that would, maybe staff just goes through that list and look at things that could be applicable, because there's some, you could have a rubber product that has sort of a logo on it, or a piece of fabric, or
Leather.
so if you're filling out the application once, you may as well add the other categories that could be applicable.
Is there a cost to each category, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're 55 each.
$55 per classification.
Yeah.
Ooh, there you
Unless
go.
we go
That's
longer.
why.
Within a year.
Second look at it.
And staff budgeted for 2017, 2018.
385.
I think it was, I don't know what I do with this. Hold
We can
on.
find $55 more.
What was that?
We can find $55
Oh, yeah,
more.
Do that
I
much, really, to it.
rounded
If
up.
we find a
my-
category.
Oh, you
Right.
did like 400?
I anticipated that there might be some more, so, yeah, I probably budgeted about 450, so we'll be fine.
So we can duke it out.
Okay. So that sounds like the recommendation is to move forward on this, look at the list a little more holistically, and bring back
I
a
would
recommendation.
probably say realistically,
January, some
by February or March.
February or March, okay.
Could we not just approve this pending the mayor's approval of the list and not bring it back? I mean, I think we're all,
I think what would need to come back is the actual policy. The list of
but
whatever
going forward with trademarking it under all of these categories,
is,
you heard the discussion, Mr. Mayor, when you're comfortable with, we've got a comprehensive list, then go forth,
Okay.
register it.
So,
So I would move that we go ahead and authorize staff to go forward with the trademarking of the logo, wayfinding logo, and pending the mayor's approval of the various categories being included.
second, including Mr. Picciardi's undergarments.
I'm not going there, that's
Are
up to you to
going be
decide.
modeling these?
And then we will bring at a later date a policy back.
Policy related to
Before
its
we
use.
implement this, but we will move forward with the registering. All in
Bring it
fa-
forward to the committee so that they can massage it and
Yeah, we might, before we actually even file it, we'll bring it back to the committee to go.
Or we can file the application with the state once it's up to your
Okay.
standard, and then once we have the another draft of the application and the policy, we'll bring it to the committee for them to massage and then bring it back to you guys before the first quarter ending of 2017.
I see it as a two-step process. One, let's get it
Yes.
trademarked so we have the right, and then secondly,
Yeah.
let's establish a policy on how it's going to be used.
Yeah,
Okay.
and we'll work on them together, so there's minimal lag time between the two.
Okay, sounds good. All in favor of moving this forward and registering the trademark, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we will go forth and do that. We are on to 7I, which is a discussion item that was added this evening, the salary survey and the organizational chart that were both presented this morning at the Finance Committee. Mr. Clausen, do you want to lead that discussion?
I'm just going to kind of introduce it to let the community know, the rest of the council, that this morning at the Finance Committee, we had an opportunity to go through the results of the salary survey that was conducted by the outside firm and look at the impacts to the various positions, including the mayor's position. And we were given the choice of 3 options to implement. And I believe the committee was comfortable with the option 3, which essentially phased in the implementation of this survey, but stays within the dollar amount that has been budgeted for the increases within the proposed budgets. And I would defer to our treasurer if he wants to add any more specifics about that. Like I said, we were comfortable with what we heard and selected the option to implement. So, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Chairman Clausen of the Finance Committee. There were 27 employees that the Northwest Management Consulting looked at the org chart, reviewed their job descriptions, and interviewed each employee. Again, we and Deb Howard interviewed the other cities to make sure that we were able to identify like job categories and then align them thusly. We had started the project back in the preliminary budget phase when we identified that the city could afford up to $193,000 to adjust the salaries. And so with the implementation that we came up with, working with the consultant, we're able to, within that $193,000 over the 2-year period, start a process that will bring people underpaid, positions underpaid, I should say, in line, and then move the people that show that they have additional income in that job category now. They will come into alignment as well on their anniversary date. So it meets all our objectives, and I'd be able to answer any questions.
So the process we're bringing forward, we couldn't afford to do everybody all at once. And so it brings, the option we chose brings everybody within 5% of 7% of the recommendation, and then the remaining portions were phased, and it would take up to 4 years. It was discussed this morning that the 2019 biennial budget process, we would hope that the number's small enough that we would be able to fully implement the remaining portion, in that 2019 budget.
I think I would go beyond that, Mayor, and it was certainly my understanding that we would make sure that the 2019-2020 budget included bringing everyone up to a par that was behind, at least being able to implement this entire salary schedule.
So is this item right now just for discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
And will we get materials so we can take a look as well and see what's being recommended?
Yeah, it'll be part of the budget packet. I mean, we're basically implementing the amount that was in the preliminary budget that everybody has reviewed. So
there was a dollar amount in the budget,
amount that
and
we
we could
put in to
afford,
implement the salary
with that
survey.
dollar amount, we were able to bring within 7%. We couldn't fully fund. So, and it's not person-driven, it's position-driven. And the comparable cities were the cities in Kitsap County and Gig Harbor, and the city of Gig Harbor. We felt they were close enough to us that we should be considering what's happening in Gig Harbor.
And Kitsap County,
And
the
Kitsap
county
County,
itself.
Bainbridge Island was one of the cities.
Yes. Ballsville, Bainbridge, Bremen, and Gig Harbor.
They're in Kitsap
County.
They will draw our
think
talent unless we can pay them.
I think one thing too that this really spells out was prior to this proposed structure was really the inequality seen with the different step percentages, and so to be able to bring our entire you know, that group of people to the exact same equitable step percentage of 2.5% for longevity, I think is a great way to approach it. Whereas before, we were all across the board, if you look at.
And what Sean's speaking to is every job has a range of steps, and we don't know how, but over years in time, some jobs had between each step up to 3.5% or more between steps, and we had other jobs that were 1.5%. And the consultant pointed out that all of the steps on all jobs positions should be at 2.5. It should be uniform. There shouldn't be disparity between two different jobs on how much the percentage change in the steps are. So that's another
So everybody's achieving parity at year 4 is what you're saying.
Yes. So you're not
objective by job description.
It's just that between those positions, you might have greater jumps annually.
You used to have that.
Okay.
That was what we found when we went through the steps. But what we've done now is set each step to be 2.5% for all jobs.
Right, but if you have a position that's well below the average now, they've got to make a greater leap to get there with their peers than perhaps some of the other positions.
That's a separate thing from the steps. The steps sets the salary schedules for each position, and in between the progression through that, we have equalized that difference in all positions within the city. Then the salary survey was a separate thing that we're implementing over a 2 to 4 year period, just because it would exceed the dollar amount that we had put into the initial budget. I think it's very important for everyone to understand that the process that was done here. We hired an outside objective firm. We looked at the job descriptions. Each position had an opportunity to update their job description so that we're looking at the job, we're not looking at the person. And then the consultant, along with Deb Hauer, our HR person, actually went out and visited with the different cities that we used as comparables to make sure that the job that we were comparing it to was similar in nature. So it was a very objective process that went and developed this, and that's what information was provided. So it really is how we compare to these other jurisdictions or county. So it's not that I really like Mark over the treasurer, so I'm going to give Mark a 10% raise and I'm going to give the treasurer a 2%. It was just look at their jobs compared to the other cities and what does it show. And there were some positions in these that were reviewed that were actually indicated that we are currently paying them over the comparables, and those positions will be frozen until they get caught up
with the COLA. So we all just got this morning. All we were doing is bring it forward to discussion to talk about it tonight. Right. I'm going to meet with department heads this morning and give them a copy of it just so they have the information to talk to their employees. And I think the other step is we'll put a copy of it in each one of your guys' mailboxes. If you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Alan and I between now and our next meeting, and we can better explain, because it's a lot of data and numbers. Yes. And we're happy to help explain it. But we spent probably a good half an hour on this subject matter this morning.
Well, and I think it should have been brought to a study session to the full council, because this is so much information, and even if we look at these charts, we don't really know how to interpret them, and the information you received was so huge, and now we're lacking that. So, my assumption was we already had excellent salaries here, and we've been granting COLAs, and there are amazing benefits. So to hear that we're going to be increasing the salaries kind of blows me away. And I know you're using comparables, but I consider Bainbridge Island and some of these places to have higher standards of living. And not that I'm trying to not have grant increases where they really should be, but I feel like I have a there's a lot of information I don't have. And I'm going to look at this and go, you all had the benefit of having someone go through it with you all and explain all the differences, and you've chosen
So
option
Cindy, I think
3.
what we discussed this morning at the Finance Committee, was brand new information. It wasn't available at our last study session. So we wanted to make sure that we added it to discussion tonight so we could have this conversation to provide anybody additional time to seek answers that you may have. So if you wanted to reach out to any of us in the Finance Committee or Treasurer, the Mayor, to dive into this, prior to, as we move towards budget, that's exactly why we wanted to have this appear for discussion tonight, is to have this opportunity for transparency and disclosure, because there is, I don't think these charts are as complicated as what it might first appear once we start walking through it. But I know I'd be happy to sit with anybody to explain what really is behind this and what the consultant is recommending.
So is the timing of this whole thing, how long has this been going on? The whole year?
No,
The study?
We've been talking about the
No,
salary.
we approved the
We've
salary
approved the
survey.
contract 2 months ago?
2 months ago?
We just got these results
Okay,
back,
so the contract was for 2 months ago, and
which we passed.
We knew,
Right.
which we was part of the December 31st
right,
budget
it's
discussions.
information gathering.
We authorized the salary survey to go forward.
Correct.
We put into the preliminary budget what we thought we could afford. We grabbed a number that we could afford to be able to implement whatever the consultant came back. At least the committee's recommendation is implementing up to that number that we put into the budget.
So we can't, what we're saying with these different options is with the number in our budget, we can't true up all of these people. So to make the first move is we're going to get them within 7% of that average number.
And I don't think it's our job or the committee's job to say that, well, I think this position should get more or less. Then you get subjective into it, and it is what it is. We approved them to go forward with the survey, and we approved how much we would be able to afford to implement. The consultant came back and said, this is how it looks when you compare your positions to these other cities in the county.
I just want to add that as to the comparables, I think it's really important that if Port Orchard wants to retain some of its incredible people it's got working for it, we need to be competitive, and that's why we chose like Bainbridge Island, which is happy to steal talent away from anybody.
A few years ago, we lost our planning person to the city of Bainbridge Island. So it is a jurisdiction that people look to.
I would just also say, sitting on the Finance Committee, I got an education in how our salaries work, because it's different than I was used to in the private sector. And so there was quite an education curve for me. And I called Mr. Martin later on this afternoon and reviewed things. So Cindy, our treasurer, is more than happy to sit down and explain the charts and everything. And again, I had, I will just say out loud what my concern is, or I shouldn't say concern, but the way I look at it from the private industry is we're not valuing the job we do. We haven't placed a dollar amount on the value of it that a job is to Port Orchard. Be it the city clerk. The city clerk is worth this much money to Port Orchard. What we're doing is we're saying of all of our neighbors, collectively, we value the city clerk at this amount of money. So that's how I look at it from private industry. I didn't let competition dictate decisions I made. But you also have the reality that if we don't pay to this level, we risk losing employees. And at what point would you prefer to go ahead and take your investment of an employee and have them go somewhere else, and then you bring in and train? Those are kind of your options with it.
In particular, with the heavy lifting we're going to have in this
Correct.
biennial budget and the number of projects that we have going forward, we can't afford to lose our good people to other jurisdictions because we won't be able to perform on the massive number of projects that we have to implement. So I can say the consultant just didn't compare job titles either. Part of this process was meeting with each employee, going over their job description. I was drawing a blank there, and then meeting with all the other jurisdictions so we weren't just to make sure that those job duties, not just the title, were matching up. And so the consultant did a very thorough job, and I'm very satisfied with the product that we got. So.
And I think the other thing, too, to mention is that you don't go out and look for the highest paid position.
Right.
You look for the average of what it is for those other jurisdictions and then compare our positions to that average. So
Correct.
It's not like we're wanting to pay the best of anybody in the community.
And Cindy's point of Bainbridge Island might be the highest. I don't know.
I don't know.
But if it is, it's being averaged against everybody else in the county, is your point.
And the county went through this recently, and so it leveled its salaries as well.
Mm-hmm. And there are some that, are above the range and are going to be frozen, until COLAs catch them up. So that was part of the process too. So, other comments, questions? Okay.
Well, the big thing is we just wanted to bring it to the full council so everybody was aware of what we just learned this morning and what the committee's recommendation is as far as implementation. As I mentioned, there were three options. At one end is we just add to the budget and pay everybody what their salary survey suggests, or we phase it in, and we chose to phase it in based on the number that we put into the preliminary budget. So that's what we anticipated spending, and that's what we're proposing that we would spend towards implementation.
The other option that was brought forward this morning too was a change to the organizational chart that will be in the budget, and we discussed that at the budget session on the 31st, and that just allocating duties, in particular with our engineering staff, with the number of capital projects that we got going on, we really need our engineering staff focused on doing engineering work. And in particular, our assistant city engineer manages the stormwater utility. We're going to elevate the proposal is to elevate the assistant stormwater program manager to be the stormwater manager. That job does not require, an engineering license. And we are, our public works foreman will be promoted to a water sewer manager position so that he can manage the water utilities, so it frees up additional marks. And because he's a union represented employee, we are backfilling, and that is the one new FTE we have this year is an additional set of boots on the ground at the Public Works Department. So did I capture that correctly, Mark? It's your...
No, the additional FTE will be non-union.
Yes, but we're replacing, I'm sorry, you're right. We're replacing that body, though, in the union.
As the foreman, the current foreman / water system manager moves in to be the water sewer manager, public works supervisor, that will free up that position that will go out to advertisement to fill that position.
So we'll backfill into the union, but he's correct. The new position is the public works supervisor, who is also the water sewer manager.
Right. The additional boots on the ground, as it were, comes from the additional summer hires and the fact that the current public works foreman, water system manager has been doing triple duty. So now he's going to move up to focus on mentoring the foreman and overseeing water sewer, so that the new foreman is more boots on the ground.
All right. Questions about that? And that be just a change in the org chart within the budget document as we continue the budget process. All right, we're on to council committees. Finance Committee, obviously that was the meatier meeting was...
Well, that was the meatier part of the budget. We did talk about the budget amendments, the substantial need ordinance, and then we got our report from the treasurer on sales tax, and sales tax continues to come in strong. So we're doing pretty well.
All right, Economic Development Tourism.
Yes, we met on Monday, November 14th, and the first half hour or so of our meeting was the educational discussion that we're doing in partnership with the Port Orchard Bay Street Association and the Chamber of Commerce. So that continues, and they will be at our meeting invited to our meeting in December also. We then talked about our Foot Ferry ridership. We had the summer program numbers, and we will be scheduling an appointment probably before the end of the year with our partners to see their commitment level for moving forward into 2017. What was interesting, in 2016, for the entire just the extended hours, which is 1 hour on Saturday evening and 10 to 6 on Sunday. For the summer in 2016, we transported 5,140 people. In 2015, we transported 5,097 people. And in 2000, that was 15, and then in 14, it was 6,500. So there was a bit of a drop-off. But what's really interesting is of the 5,100, the 5,140 that went across into this last summer, 2,776 of those were the Sunday and Monday of Labor Day weekend. So 54% of the riders went across in that one weekend. And Labor Day is traditionally in 2014, over 3,100 people used it on Labor Day weekend. So the weather wasn't quite as good in 15, and that number was down to 1,800. So it's really weather dependent, and Labor Day weekend is our big weekend. So anyway, we'll have the discussion with our partners and see what they want to do moving forward. The other item, agenda item we had was a discussion on downtown land uses, and Development Director Nick Bond discussed the reality of the parcels that were down there and gave us a homework assignment. And the 3 members that were there that day, which was Fred and Cindy and myself, we now have maps of all the parcels, and we're going to color code what we think the zoning should be. And this is an exercise that will come to full council. But he let us know that we have some inconsistent and incorrect zoning currently downtown. We have some things as mixed use, and they're obviously a parking lot. So there are just some things that we need to clean up, and he's asked us to really look at it parcel by parcel. And so anyway, we're happy to do that, and it should be very educational for us. And with that, we adjourn.
Following on that, Nick and I since then had a discussion. How would the council feel about having a joint meeting with the Planning Commission?
I was just thinking about
to do that. You know, I thought we're going to do this coloring exercise, but maybe we should include the Planning Commission in that process after the first
We're
year.
still waiting for our colored pencils.
Yeah, we did give the color sheet to the POPSA people and the chamber people that were present that day. So they all listened. Most of them stayed for the entire meeting and heard all the discussion. So, yeah, no, that would be fine.
Okay, so that other heads being inclusive of the Planning Commission. Okay. One of our work studies after the first of the year, I think that could be the most or a good portion or most or all of a meeting. So, okay, thank you for your report. Utilities Committee, you had a meeting of one here just recently.
We did. A meeting of one. That was on Monday. And actually, quite a lot was discussed. The capital facilities charge is going to be vetted by the home builders and the realtors. Moving forward with that, and that was presented earlier, so we have information on that. There's a lot going on, of course, in utilities. Well, number 12, the drilling will be starting, I believe, in January and take about 6 weeks or so, depending on a few things. That is a developer that will be drilling well 12, McCormick Woods. You have to watch me, right, Mark? Well 13 will also be drilled early this next year. We're moving forward on that, and information was presented. Well number 9 was discussed, and of course that work will also be going on this next year, relocating the bathrooms and building the treatment building. So Public Works is going to be very busy. And we talked about the biosolids study and the Marina Pump Station. That's an ongoing discussion. And that, our next meeting will be December 19th at 9:30.
Anything to report at Sewer Advisory Committee? We got the budget presentation tonight.
I think we got most of it.
Land use?
We had to cancel our meeting due to lack of business items.
Okay. Sorry. We'll bring more to you.
Make them good.
All right. Lodging tax.
The committee met last night basically to review the recommendations that were the council made at the 1031 council meeting. And the lodging tax committee was on the whole comfortable with the revisions with one request. First, they are actually interested in looking forward to working more closely with Visit Kitsap. There was one member who was talking about coordination of a calendar that may be able to happen more with them. But there one request is that they do feel that they spent a lot of time looking at the applications, listening to the interviews, and they stood by their original funding for both the Port Orchard Bay Street Association and the Sydney Museum, because the Port Orchard Bay Street Association has a potential new event. They're talking about an Antiques Roadshow type of event in the summer. And the Sydney Museum app actually, although it is for museums, it can include the entire historic district and give information about the buildings downtown. So for that reason, they would actually like council to think of a way to fund those two at their original levels.
I think for process, we're bringing the budget because of on October 31st, the council made a recommendation back. It started a 45-day clock ticking, which went beyond the date we're hoping to approve the budget, which is December 13th. So the LTAC, while the revenue is in the budget, the itemized expenditures are not in the budget document. And so that's the plan to continue that process. The earliest we can take action on the recommendation that's been brought forward is December 20th. So at that meeting, Brandy will prepare a staff report. We'll lay out what the council's recommendation was, what the LTAC committee has brought back, and the council can deliberate those two options that evening, pick one of the two, and then implement that, and it'll be just separate from the budget process, but we'll still be able to fund those items in the beginning of the year.
That sounds good. And this committee is also interested in meeting in the winter quarter just to talk about tourism in general, not about specific applications. They're thinking of ways to maybe encourage the events to talk about the places, the lodging to stay in downtown, and figure out ways that they could sort of advertise that. And I think, as we've already discussed, we would like to start the process earlier for next year, so it isn't quite so up to the deadline.
Much appreciated. Chimes and Lights.
Chimes and Lights. We met and pretty much ironed out the last of the details for the event. I do want to add that I really appreciate the work that went into the tree. It was a gift. It was a gift from the Saints Car Club, and they put a lot into that, and it turned out that it wasn't the easiest tree to work with. It was very tall, 46 feet, and Public Works.
It's our tallest tree ever.
And you know what? I look at it and it's beautiful, but it's a custom-made tree. All the way from the top that was replaced to the 15 boughs that were added. It's a piece of art is what it is.
I call it Franken-tree.
That tree is there's hardly any original to it. Nonetheless, it's beautiful and it's stately, and it's going to be just a magnificent showpiece for the Festival of Chimes and Lights. But big thank you to Tony Lang and, of course, George Thompson and Bill Thiel for all the work they put into it. I love it. Okay, and another thing is we were working again on talking about the replacement of the wreaths and garlands, depending on if we have the money for that next year, and moving on that so that we can get the best value at the end of the year, beginning of next, in purchasing new garlands and wreaths. Otherwise, December 3rd, we want to see you all there. And please, council members, you are all welcome to be up on the main stage at around 5 o'clock to be introduced to the public and to show your support. Thank you very much. And of course, the mayor.
I'll be there.
Thank you.
Okay, don't forget, we're doing our Holiday Good Neighbor Tour. If you're going to attend, you need to let Brandy know so that we get an appropriate size vehicle. December 19th, we're going to leave here at City Hall at 6 o'clock. So we'll see you all there. And we're on to the mayor's report. Don't forget, we're having holiday food drive. There's a bin down in the entrance at City Hall. Bring some canned goods. It'd be greatly appreciated. We're going to have some of those blue totes, too, around City Hall at Chimes and Lights. December 5th, we've got the budget hearing, and we're going to also expand. Remember, we're expanding that to the discussion about the low-impact development standards that need to be adopted by the end of the year. This homeless housing committee, I just can't believe, I think we're going to at least implement 2 of our short-term goals before the end of the year. Mm-hmm. So we broke into 3 subcommittees. Our next meeting isn't going to be till January, but I'm pretty confident that the showers are going to be on, a mobile shower unit is going to be coming to First Lutheran Church on Saturdays. The Lutheran Church is already doing a meal on that day, and we're still working on trying to get some health care there on that day. I'm not quite sure yet. When everybody in the this particular aspect of social, they're all worried, working on their Thanksgiving meals. So they're all quite busy, from the food bank and the rescue mission and others. And it's the rescue mission who has the mobile shower unit. So it's pretty exciting. So I'm pretty confident that it'll be implemented by the end of before the end of the year. We're not quite as far along on the severe weather shelter. There's 2 sites under consideration. The local pastors and Department of Emergency Management have come together to put this together. We're not quite as far along on that one. And the hotel vouchers, many of the churches were already doing this. I think we've got a commitment that they will fund this. Helpline will manage it, and will have kind of one-stop shopping for this, and get some vouchers to our police officers, who many times find that mother and small children sitting at the Walmart parking lot sleeping in their car because they got evicted that day or something, and they need a day or 2 at a hotel until they can get to social services. So that one also, I believe, will have in place before the end of the year. So that's been a great committee. 720 Prospect, design's complete. We're out to bid, correct? We really like to be in there by the end of the year, but if you can do this math with me, we're going to bring hopefully the award to the next council meeting, which is December 13th, and the contractor will have 45 days to do the work. So there aren't 45 more days in December after, and there's some holidays in there, so it could be more the middle or end of January before we're in there, but we're working on it. I gave everybody the council retreat goals that was from our retreat, and I just want to report back the things that we did accomplish. There were 8 items that we did get done this year. There's 2 items that won't be completed because they didn't make it out of the budget process, so we'd lacked funding to do them. And all the remaining items will be completed or projected to be completed in 2017. Don't have to discuss this tonight, but if you would like to have a retreat in 2017, maybe email Brandy and I and let us know what it is, subject matters you'd like to meet on, whether we want to have that facilitated again.
And when as well? Are you looking for alternatives?
Are we looking right out of the gate or later, mid-year? I believe we've got this biennial budget. One thing we're planning for is probably in the April work study is laying out the plan and prioritizing. I'll work with the treasurer to make a recommendation and then get you guys to take a look at it, because we've got 2 years worth of revenue, but we won't have it all in the first quarter or even the first half of the year. So we've got to set some priorities, what we want to get done first and what can wait till 2017. So I'd like everybody involved in that process. Tremont, wow. So thank all of you guys, staff, for believing that we could make it happen. So it's amazing what we can accomplish when we all come together. So it's just a wow moment. So hats off to all of you. I think we all signed it, the thank you letter to TIB. I thought that was a nice gesture. It was Mr. Dorsey's idea, and jumped on that. And then I just want to thank Brandy for being here tonight. She's been out sick for a few days. Janine's gone on vacation, so we really didn't have anybody else to put in the chairs. So she was there with a frog in her throat tonight. So thank you for being here. That's all I've got. We're on to director's reports. Mr. Dorsey?
Okay, so just kind of 10,000-foot public works as far as what we have, like a month left. So 2016 closeouts, the DeKalb Pier Phase 2, the DeCant facility, the Well 9 Ad Ready retrofit plans, the McCormick Park Phase 2 plans, the Bay Street Pedestrian Pathway Segment 3 construction Ad Ready plans, the LID code updates, the Well 13 Ad Ready specs and contract, the Tremont Ad Ready an obligation of funds, and we're already out potholing as part of the final construction plans. And then the Bay Street Pedestrian Segment 3 easements. We have Comfort Inn is signed. We're meeting tomorrow with Titus. And then we have Quisenberry. Those are the critical ones that we get done sooner than later. And then we'll have Comfort Inn, where we have a temporary construction easement and a potential vacation of the building portion that's encroaching. So those are kind of the bigger, not day-to-day things, but project closeouts that need to happen. And as Cindy Lucarelli mentioned, in early 2017, January, February, March, we'll be going out to add for the Well 9 retrofit, and I think about 2/3 of that's in 17 and 1/3 of the construction's in 18. The McCormick Park Phase 2, I think we're going to try to go out to add. The Bay Street Pedestrian Pathway Segment 3 construction, and continuing with the acquisitions for Bay Street in 2017, purchasing the remaining homes and easements and right-of-ways. The Well 13 drilling, obviously Tremont construction, which is an 18 to 24-month process. And then Well 12, getting everything in place for the developer to drill that well. So it's going to be a really busy end of 16 and a super busy beginning of 17.
Thank you. Mr. Clausen.
I would just add one thing that, I don't know if it's a closeout, but it was very impressive, and that's your pavement management effort that you went through and the report that we got at the last work study. I was pretty impressed.
Oh, yes, thank you, John. So we still, well, I forgot to add that. So we have to do the CFCs, water sewer CFCs as an ordinance. And then the pavement management system and ADA transition plan are policies at this point, and the crosswalk. I believe the crosswalk we'll have to do as maybe a resolution. At some point we need to get together and look at those. But yeah, those were big ticket items. I mean, those were like 8 years in the asking. So yeah, that was huge too. So
I've already started the budget priorities for the 2019 biennial budget, and it's got about 8 things on it already, and 2 of them.
Well, I think that for me, the biggest thing is now we have an objective way of determining which streets get treated first, where before, up until this point, it's been pretty subjective.
The highways taken off?
What's that?
Were the highways taken off?
It's in
Yet?
process.
Yeah.
It's in process.
I was wondering what our percentage would end up being after that.
Yeah, it moved it. So we had 71. It moved the 70 we're underrating to a 70, and it moved the. What was that? I can't remember that other.
The other one was down a percent.
It was down 1%.
B
So
minus.
Dropped a percent.
dropped 1%.
Not noticeable.
Yeah. So, but we did. They make that adjustment, and we'll get the final report.
Treasurer Martin? Oops, I'm sorry. Anything to report on?
I just found out that I got a lot of accounting to do for the Public Works Department. It was what my takeaway was. But anyway, I want to thank the council for the adoption, allowing the cat in the city. I'm going to take that as a good sign for the game this weekend because I'm a Cougar and I'm all for cats. I'd also like to thank everybody that's been working on the budget. That's been my life, and I would also wish you all a very enjoyous Thanksgiving holiday. Thank you.
Mr. Bond?
Well, like Mark, I have a very busy end of the year schedule, and I should say we have a very busy end of the year schedule because council's not going to get off the hook without some significant reading before the holidays here. We have 2 deadlines in front of us. One of them is the low impact development code update for stormwater, and I've been working with Public Works and the attorneys on drafting those code updates. Right now we have a very busy schedule. I'm expecting the final draft documents to come from the attorneys tomorrow, which are going out to the Planning Commission. We've got a Planning Commission study session on the 29th, a City Council study session at our special meeting on the 5th. The Planning Commission is having their hearing on this on the 6th, and then City Council needs to take action at either the 12th or the 19th meeting in December, which means that these code updates are going to need some...
About the 13th or the 20th.
Mm-hmm. I may have my dates wrong. By 1. Anyway, so there's significant action on the low-impact development codes that Andrea and I and our staffs have been putting together with the attorney. We also, our subdivision and permit processing codes, the interim codes in place expire in February, and so we're going to tackle that right after the first of the year. And when you said joint Planning Commission council meeting, my intent was to have a joint meeting to discuss those code updates at the same time so that I don't have to have 2 separate study sessions. So we may need a second study session to tackle downtown codes and zoning issues. But in any event, we're very busy writing code. And unfortunately, usually we get a little bit of a break at the end of the year in terms of permitting. And I shouldn't say unfortunately, but it's making things very difficult in the office. The LID deadline is prompting everybody to submit their applications before the end of the year so that they vest, and we've taken in several commercial developments. An apartment complex, I'm told, is going to be in next week, and a lot of the Horseman Heights development, they've already submitted plans for like 8 houses that they're trying to get in here before the end of the year, and so we've had a lot of permit activity for this time of year, which is unusual. Next, the Comfort Inn property, we have a verbal agreement on that, and so we're putting together the purchase and sale, and we'll have more information on that. And if we want to close by the end of the year, which the budget amendment that was passed earlier tonight envisions, we'll probably need to take action on that at our special meeting on the 5th as well.
Can we do it now?
And then finally, the wayfinding signs are just about done, and they're planning on installing those on December 18th, and it may take a few days depending on weather and how what they run into in the field, but you should see those up before the holidays. And finally, Alan, go Huskies.
That's who they're playing.
So, and if you'd like an update on the hotel property, I could do it in less than 5 minutes if we wanted to have a brief executive session. So,
Yeah.
okay. All right, so after we adjourn, or before we adjourn, we'll step in the back here for just a moment. It won't take 5 minutes. So, Sharon?
I have nothing substantive, but I did want to wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving as well.
We've been keeping your firm very busy here lately, and our risk pool came back. We thought we were done with the fire ILA, and they, of course, had some other ideas. So we've been ping-ponging that agreement back and forth because I'd really like to adopt that on the 13th also, and as the chief would also like to get, because it has budget implications, we'd just like to get it done. And we're close. We're down to 3 items, and we sent over another draft this afternoon. So, Brandy, you got any voice left?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're to citizens' comments. Anyone have anything they'd like to share with us tonight? Bobby? Nick?
I'd like to, Bobby Stewart, 801 Bay Street, for the record. I'd like to invite the council to come to our pancake breakfast next Saturday, 9:30 at the public market, and it'd be great to see some of you
This
there.
Saturday or next Saturday?
Next Saturday, the 26th.
This Thanksgiving weekend Saturday?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it
And
also
it's,
Shop Small or Shop Saturday?
Yeah, it's Shop Small,
What time is breakfast?
9:30.
9:30?
And the Lions are putting it on. And it's really a nice event, and it's to sort of showcase the shop local. We're hoping that a lot of the stores will be open, and it seems like it's good. And everyone says it's a free breakfast, which it is, but just in case you'd like to know, Bay Street Association is paying for the food, so not really free for us, but free for all of you. So we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bobby.
Remind the council that this doesn't have anything to relate to the conduct of city business, so you guys can attend the event. We won't have to notice it. Just make sure you guys aren't talking about city business during the event. So,
Other comments?
The cat issue got me thinking. We have some Norwegian roof rats in our neighborhood, and I've kind of named a couple of them. Now, if I name 2 of them and I have a dog, do I have to license the 2 I named? And if I name a 3rd one, am I out of compliance? Just
Possibly.
I
curious.
can tell you that the code only requires you to license your cat or dog.
That's
Roof
not,
rats are good. They're
no,
exempt.
that's not true. They're,
As many rats as you want.
can we? Okay, we don't have to.
What about goats?
No, license, that's true. But it still counts in your number of animals, your chickens,
Bird.
your snakes, whatever else. So, all right. No other citizen, Jerry?
I was going to say, just with the mention of the rats, my neighbor bought some organic winter vegetables that have now become rat feed in their basement, and they've never had the rats before. And when you were working on the waterfront, we were inundated. Mr. Geiger came to one of the previous mayor's meetings and was complaining about how many rats had come up and was filling his garage. I think that they're back again. I hadn't seen any signs of them, but I think I'm noticing that they're in our neighborhood now. So we do have a rat problem.
You know, I want to comment on the rats. Everybody's in on this. I live on Fox Island. There's rats all over. I have a house in Seaside, Oregon. There's rats all over. They're all over Astoria. I mean, the country has a rat infestation every place I go. So, where you can cover up your garbage, please do.
Problem?
I'm
Because they're
wondering.
everywhere you're at.
Well, according to my wife, I am. We
rat.
bait them. I mean, I can't bait them fast enough, and she wants me to. She called me today, and claimed she found rat dropping and wants me to come home and look at it. This is true. So it's pervasive. So, I feel your pain.
All right, we're going to walk in the back and have 5 minutes for an executive session, and with no action to be taken afterwards related to a real estate matter. So Sharon, if you want to pop back here and keep us out of trouble.
Big. Biggest ones,
I think it's just a resolution.
More friends?
The Norwegian.
Norwegian roof rat.
Oh.